So we're here today in the spirit of South by Southwest to dive into the local and global opportunities in the music industry, exploring things like diversity, cultural collaboration, technological innovation and screen music. So we'll throw to the first question as a bit of an icebreaker. This is for everyone. So to kick things off, what's one thing happening in the music industry today that either makes you roll your eyes or jump out of bed in excitement?
Oh, we're starting with me. Okay, so rolling my eyes. I'm not much of an eye roller, so I can tell you something that makes me a little bit sad, and that is how hard it is for a screen production to be made these days, and how all the resources are so squeezed that every single time we do something we have to do it literally with just on the smell of an oily rag, and it doesn't help to make, you know, great Australian screen productions when everything is so difficult. I've had one producer say to me, when funding comes around, it's like aid trucks coming and we're all running for them. So I think that we need to do a lot of work in that space. That does make me very sad. Something that makes me excited? Absolutely. The other day I walked down Marrickville, I live in Marrickville, and seeing all the lines of people outside the live music venues made me very excited. So I hope that spreads.
Thanks, David. Ankur.
So, sorry it's very early, so I'll be a little slow. But something that makes me completely roll my eyes is this concept of numbers and followers in the world of music. As I said the other day to someone, that when I started making music, the songs were called numbers, and now it's the numbers about the followers. When you go to conferences and you meet young musicians, the one other question they always ask is, how do we get more followers? And that is, for me, the death of music. So that completely makes me roll my eyes. And in terms of excitement, I feel there's I have a lot of excitement around AI. I'm very curious what we can do. For me, it's like what happened to the world when we discovered the nuclear power. Is how we use it. I'm excited to see how we can use it to help us make better music.
Thanks, Ankur. Dean.
I don't know why it's just. We generally look after our guests.
Okay, now I've woken up.
I'm just going to keep my hand on your back. Don't want to lose the gigs. Look, I used to roll my eyes at when you're going to see government bureaucrats and they go, oh, you're from the arts. And the work it took to get people to understand we're an industry. The flip side of that is I think we're now seen as an industry, so I'm going to take that side.
Thanks. So Ankur, just on the theme around local and global, you've been at the intersection of Indian and global music culture. In this hyper-connected world, does the idea of local music exist anymore? Or is it all just global now? How do you see artists tapping into that cross-border energy?
For me, like, I go by this quotation by Mahatma Gandhi. He had said, think local, act global. And I feel it's very relevant to even the music we make. I have been very fortunate. I was part of this project in India called Coke Studio, where I was creatively producing music, where I had to get these collaborations done between people who would not otherwise collaborate. So I had the opportunity of like digging deep into parts of India where you won't kind of go. I realized that past many years I was only playing gigs in places with airports. So I was not going to places beyond airports. So I had the opportunity of meeting those really amazing local artists and make them collaborate with global artists, or Indian artists who are having a global impact. And just listening to the stories and letting that conversation happen between the local musicians and established career musicians, and putting them in a room and creating an environment of fun and making them create anything they wanted to create. We ended up creating some amazing music that even entered the global charts. Some of our songs were in the Spotify global charts. And I feel it's not a coincidence that the structure of the atom and the solar system is the same. So if we concentrate on the atom, we're going to kind of replicate the solar system.
What do you think, Caitlin?
in terms of global and local. I love the line, think local,
Think
act
local,
global.
yeah.
I think that's fantastic. I think
That's not mine, that's Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes, it's a great line. I'm taking it away with me and I will be resonating on that. I definitely think that now, much more than ever, we are absolutely a global market, and the more we can make things on a global scale that can travel beyond our borders, we can certainly have the opportunity to connect more widely with the rest of the world, and that has great cultural benefits, not just to us and our cultural identity, but also more broadly to, world relations. I think art has that existential ability to connect us like that.
Dean, do you want to add anything there?
Look, only that I think the other great opportunity in that space is bringing people to Australia or New Zealand to work here. So export, sort of working in the reverse, bring people here. Why wouldn't you want to come and live in Sydney for 3 months and co-write or produce and work? So if there's a way to encourage or incentivise people to work here and collaborate, then that is export for us as well in terms of IP. So I think there's huge opportunity.
In the presentation, Dean touched on the huge diversity of our new members that are coming through APRA, and it was something I was going to ask Leah, but I think it's an important issue to cover off. Are we doing enough to embrace diverse voices in the music scene, or are we still paying lip service? What's the next frontier in making diversity more than just tokenistic? I might throw to you, Dean, first.
Look, maybe to share my sort of personal learning. I think it takes a while to get into the headspace of what does consultation mean. So before you race off down the track and decide what programs you should put in place or what you should do, the extent to which you've connected with diverse communities and spoken broadly in the context of First Nations communities, have you shut up and listened? So I think there's a lot to do in that space. And work out how you bring it all together, because the risk is that you do something short and sharp that doesn't have traction or doesn't build or doesn't bring people together. So for me, the learning has been, sit comfortably with the uncomfortableness for a little while. It can't be solved overnight. It's going to take time, but strategically, then what's the right thing to do?
Caitlin?
I like that there's an idea that there's an ongoing fostering and opening of a pathway there rather than just a quick box ticking exercise, Dean, because I do find that a lot of diversity programs potentially have like a box ticking element to them, and I think that that's very short-sighted, and it also doesn't include in a meaningful way. It's usually just like, it's like the box ticking exercise isn't, as often feels like from my perspective, that it's not there to ensure that someone diverse gets a chance, but it's more that person, whoever it is that's programming that particular event or show or whatever it may be, can feel a little better for ticking that box.
Correct.
Maybe I should do panels in the morning more often.
We can arrange that. Ankur, got any thoughts on that issue of diversity and lip service and real action?
I'll just echo what these two people have said. They're absolutely correct in terms of. I feel the question is, are we doing enough in India? I can say no. Is there an attempt to listen? I would say maybe. We are trying, but it still comes from a very privileged space. The people who are taking those decisions are privileged, and a lot of people who come from diverse backgrounds are not sitting in powerful positions as yet. And I think that's the most important thing to do first up, to make sure that people who are taking decisions and come from a diverse space, so at least we listen to what everyone has to say. I think India is far behind right now, but there is an attempt. I would say yes, maybe we are trying, but not hard enough.
So on the issue around AI, local content and global platforms, Dean mentioned we released a report in August on the AI's impact on the music industry. So just to expand a bit more on that, how does this intersect with the challenges of getting local content seen and heard on global platforms? And are local artists at risk of being drowned out, or do you see new opportunities emerging through these disruptions that could actually elevate their visibility and impact?
Oh, I was hoping the other two would go first on that. Look, I think, I think what we saw from the survey results, which was phenomenal, was the number of people who are using AI in some shape or form. I sat with a particular member for a couple of hours over lunch talking about AI, and I'm not a technical person, but just to hear how they were using AI and how incredible it was as a tool is fantastic. And we've said to the government, musicians are normally early adopters of technology, and so people aren't Luddites. That's not the issue. The issue is if you're fundamentally replaced or all of your IP is used by AI platforms hoovering it all in with no consent or credit or compensation to you, then that's an absolute disaster. And that's the gist of what we're saying to the federal government, that the guardrails need to be in place to say to platforms, local or international, that you need to license the content that you're hoovering up. I think on the issue of what comes out of generative AI, I think that's, everyone's still looking at that. Like, does it make redundant commercial works? I'm sort of glass half full in that space, because I think ultimately music's about connection and people want to go and see somebody. And so that won't be diminished. But there will be a reality, I presume, of, massive upload and swamping to platforms of AI-generated content. So I think that's an issue for everyone in the industry, for the platforms. Like, if you're a platform, what do you do about that? Do you bring it all up, or is it identified as Gen AI product? And if so, how much Gen AI means it needs to be registered as Gen AI? So it's tricky.
Ankur?
I'm still trying to understand AI. It's like I've not understood much. But the thing that I see from my point of view is that when the Industrial Revolution happened, it changed the power dynamic. It took the power away from the bard and the singer and gave it to the product, which was the LP and the CD. I think AI is multiplying it much more. So I feel in a very crazy way the power might come back to the bard and the singer. So I am particularly myself concentrating more on my live act and seeing what I can give one-on-one to people, and if I can develop that in an interesting way, then it might I might try and do something unique there. And for me, it's very important for the power to come back to the artist and take the power back from the product, which was the LP and the CD, and now the streaming has confused everyone where the power lies. Maybe it's the numbers, but with AI coming, it's going to go through the stratosphere. So I think it's time for us artists to claim the power back.
Caitlin?
Couldn't agree more with claiming the power back there. I love that one too. I'll be taking a lot away from you this morning. Thank you, Ankur. Yes, look, absolutely. I think that AI has both a lot of excitement and dirt around it. Like, it's a dirty and exciting space. It's exciting because it has the ability to help us artists make more interesting, amazing. It could be a great tool, but I really don't want to use it as an artist if it's operating in an illegal way. It's scraping, our content from the internet without asking us and without compensating us. And further, it feels like ethically that's not right, and legally that's not right. In terms of the guardrails and the government paper, I think that's fantastic that they're placing in potentially these preventative measures. But obviously AI is a space that affects more than just music. It affects the entire ecosystem of society. And it seems that guardrails paper was more focused on other things other than the arts. So I do hope that their high-risk definition of AI does include the arts, and it's certainly what the AGSC asked for. And then beyond that, absolutely we need to take the power back. I think there are, it would be horrendous, and I have heard on the grapevine that there are certain, big production companies, streaming companies, who are thinking of replacing or starting to use AI-generated music rather than composers for their shows. And what is that going to mean? How does an AI-generated piece of music, how is it going to express culturally who we are and what we are? And part of us making screen stories, making songs, releasing songs, making music for screen or whatever, part of us as artists is expressing the world around us. It's expressing who we are and how we relate to everything around us. And that has a beautiful, existential effect on us as human beings. It makes us better as humans. It gives us the ability to feel compassion, kindness, all those wonderful things. And what if that is replaced by something that is scraped generically off the internet without discernment, and then turn that into a big cultural soup of a piece that is like, really doesn't truly reflect who we are?
While you're on a roll.
Oh, God. Someone take this away.
So with AI and the other tech innovation shaking things up, how is this impacting the role of screen composers? And is technology threatening the sustainability of a screen composer's career, or could it actually open up new creative and business opportunities? How do you see composers, you and your colleagues, navigating this changing landscape?
I think it's already hard enough to sustain a living as a screen composer right now. Like, it's really, really hard. And the word is contraction. I've heard it from the American markets. I'm sure it's also in the Australian markets. There's a great contraction of what's being made. And with this contraction, there's less commissions happening, and those commissions are smaller fees. And so it's that's already hard. Now, if we add in the fact that a bunch of those jobs will be taken by AI, potentially, it's going to make it even harder in the screen composition space. And that economically isn't just me as a composer losing my job. When I work on a show or a film, I employ a team of people below me. I have orchestrators, musicians, I might bring in co-composers, collaborators, engineers, producers, all of that kind of stuff. All of those jobs will be wiped out as well. So I think it's very, very important with the inevitability of AI entering our market and our space, that we find ways to include it ethically and legally, that is only going to increase our potential to create amazing things rather than diminish it.
Ankur?
Same. And she said it all.
Oh, we're going to be friends, Ankur. We're going to be friends.
I like this. This is good.
Let's get a coffee after.
I need another one.
So we're seeing more collaborations between artists from vastly different cultures. What's the most exciting collaboration you've witnessed lately that truly broke barriers, whether you were involved or just a fan? And what lessons can we take from that for the future? I'll throw you, Ankur.
I mean, I've seen really interesting collaborations lately, but one collaboration that happened many years back, it still blows my mind, was between Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and Michael Brook. And I feel that that collaboration inspired me to understand that people can talk, and one important thing that music should do is break walls and make people have a conversation. And I have seen other collaborations in that, but something that powerful has not hit me since that collaboration. And I feel it's time for all of us to break these walls and start these conversations and see how my story meets somebody else's story and how we feel the same. And I think that's the key for music. So to answer your question, sorry, lately there have been collaborations, but they've been very mechanical collaborations, just for the sake of collaborations. It's good to put people in a room, but I think there's the need for more listening of stories from both sides, and these collaborations need to happen over a period of time for them to have that kind of magical impact that Nusrat and Michael's collaboration did.
Dean?
I was thinking about the collaboration that happened in New Zealand earlier this year between some First Nations artists with some Maori artists, and Jenny and I were over there, and to watch sort of the impact of language and people working in language really it was really striking, and you could see the emotional connection between people, even though the languages were completely different. But to be writing a song that's in 2 or 3 languages, and so you can see the cultural value of that. But I think without being, glib and commercial about it, I think that's what the world wants as well. That is interesting, and people want that diversity of sound and experience, and it's authentic, which is often a word that's overused, but it's, you can't help but be moved when you hear it. You can see the connection. So I think there's a great opportunity to look beyond the normal, usual collaborations into, especially language. I think language is really interesting.
Caitlin?
Bluey. I think it's beautiful that Bluey is made by not just Geoff Bush, obviously, but also his team. He's got a great team with him, like Jazz Darcy, Dan Bryan, and Daniel O'Brien, I should say, and Joe Twist. And I think that's cool that they've got a team of people making this great music that's going worldwide. But beyond that, it seems to be an infinite collaboration, that one. It's every time I open up Instagram, Geoff Bush is sharing something else that someone else has sung along to his theme, and then someone else has sung along to that. And then this is kind of like infinite worldwide collaboration that is happening with the Bluey score, and I love that.
There was a really great story the other week in which teachers were sort of complaining. They were trying to get kids to embrace classical music, and they were playing these classical musical scores to the kids. And all the kids would be like, this is in America, saying, oh, that's from Bluey, that's from Bluey. And they're like, Beethoven, Bach, and because they're using it on Bluey, they're exposing kids to a huge diversity of music, which is very cool. Future trends. Looking ahead, how do you see the future of music for screen evolving? Will the rise of global content creation lead to even more collaboration, or will it be just the same players on a bigger stage? What does it mean for artists from countries like India and Australia? Do you want to kick off?
I think that we do have the potential to have an absolute content gold mine. People cannot stop watching TV. It's just one of those things that makes us all feel better at night when we cuddle our dog and watch TV. So I think that we need to make content, not just culturally, but also like economically, and people want it. So I think there is a potential there if we can harness the way it's travelling and the changes and the shifts in it. If we can kind of hang on, I've seen a phrase which is like, survive till 25, is that the phrase? If we can just hang on until everything opens up a bit again, I think that we can all benefit and make beautiful things, as long as whilst we're hanging on, we're not only mending our nets, but making sure we're well and truly stocked to ride the wave really well.
Ankur?
I feel like we, in terms of you use the word content and how people are making a lot of content right now, we are in the fast food phase of entertainment, and I think it will slowly kind of give way to healthy food. Which is now, because we see that our brains are going obese with the content that we are consuming. So I feel now the next phase in the near future, where especially the younger generation, they are so conscious about mental health, we might enter a very unique and interesting phase of not content, but something beautiful that we see on small screen, big screen, in experiences where we are in a room together again, like in a theater, maybe some other place, but we need people and we need more warmth, and that's coming very soon. According to me, I might be wrong.
I like that. Dean?
I don't mind a bit of fast food, but I love that analogy. That's fantastic. And I think it's the mix of that you want. You want great fast food. It has a place. It works. There's big parts of our industry that are about that type of production, but it's making sure that there's defined space for craft and for a diversification in what we're listening to, which sort of goes back to you need the stages, you need all of the areas, And from a government point of view, I think the challenge is how do you translate that into government speak? How do they go that each of these channels are really critical? And it's not different to many other industries. If the whole thing's fast food at the expense of great restaurants, it doesn't work. You need the mix. Oh, we're going to run with that analogy like this tomorrow.
We'll be on a media release somewhere soon.
And the obese brains.
So just some final thoughts. If you could whisper one piece of advice into the ear of every up-and-coming songwriter and composer right now, what would it be? Caitlin?
Oh, I would love to come back to just what it means to be a creative and making things from your heart and your soul, and not making things that you think other people are going to need or want, but make it just from your soul, because that always speaks.
Dean?
Well, as a non-creator in that sense, I'd whisper thank you. I mean, I think it's the eternal gift, and we're incredibly fortunate to work in a space that is about supporting creators, and I think it's incredibly tough often for people to see what's the future, their career development, all the things that Caitlin and Ankur have raised. But you know, if that's your heartbeat, your connection, then stick with it, because you're doing something amazing for the world.
Ankur?
For me, like, I usually don't try and give advice because still learning myself. So I usually, my advice is that don't listen to many advices. And follow your gut, because you know in your gut, like we all know, like, you know, we know whether we have to go there or not. And when we listen to a lot of voices, it becomes noise, and then we could sometimes forget our inner voice. So I would say just don't listen to me, just follow your inner voice.
I think that's a really beautiful ending to our panel discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.